I'm wondering.
What are you wondering about, wise Plato?
I see these students in class every day. Some are actively participating, but some are not. I ask myself, is this difference an inherent disposition that lead to increased willingness to participate? This calls to mind a trait my teacher Socrates once told me about extraversion, if I'm not mistaken.
What is this mysterious trait you speak about, my admired advisor?
It's extraversion, my young Padawan. Extraversion. It's a very significant characteristic in putting yourself out in the world, out in this world today. Be extra, the extraversion of yourself.
You have mentioned extraversion excessively, my wise. But what do you mean?
Excuse myself. I get caught up in my own thoughts. I'm an introvert. Extraversion, however, is a personality trait where people are outgoing, sociable, and talkative.
Just like the old Atair, who speaks a lot in the Democratic Assembly.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I think I understood the concept, my wise.
Let's talk more. Yes, exactly. Like you said before. People with this trait, I believe, have a much better chance at exposing themselves at class activities, therefore increasing class participation.
That is an interesting point you make. But what are you basing this theory on? And how strong of a correlation you predict, my wise?
I like your curiosity, my young blossoming child. But I base my theories from my thoughts, first of all, always from my thoughts, as I'm a philosopher and a contemplator. I like to think. But I can back this up with certain scholarly articles that I found on Google Scholar. And one of them, by Rubinstein, 1994, he mentions that personality trait related to dominance and exhibitionism predicted class participation grades to increase. Yes.
That is interesting again. But what does extraversion provide the students with that makes them able to participate more in class?
Another good question, my young child. You are really blossoming. However, I have found another study which correlates with my theory. A study by Megan Elizabeth Snodgrass.
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 Anyways, showed that students with high extroversion performed better in school and that it was mediated by anxiety and class participation. This means that students with higher extroversion were not as afraid to participate in class than others, thus performed better in school. This, my young Padawan, means that the more extrovert you are, the less anxious you are to express yourself and ideas amongst other young Padawans.
That is very interesting once again. But do you think this holds true for the students at our idyllic small campus?
This is what my God sent me on a mission to find out. I gave a number of students a questionnaire with questions that asked about their willingness to participate in class and their extroversion. From both sets of questions, I calculated a mean score, in my head of course, and consulted the wise SPSS who lives right behind the Acropolis. Behind.
What did you consult SPSS about?
the correlation of the two concepts, my blossoming child. The independent variable in this analysis was the participant's level of extraversion, and the dependent variable was the level of class participation. As predicted, with the help of SPSS, who is a man, of course, because of all his flaws, I found a positive correlation between extraversion and class participation.
What does this correlation look like, my advisor?
Come, I will take you and show you the output of our wise SPSS gods. The SPSS gods have shown strong correlation with extraversion and class participation. First of all, with the R's value being 0.362 and the degrees of freedom being 100 minus 2, making it 98. And the p-value is shown to be significant as it is lower than 0.05. To see to what extent extraversion could explain class participation, I ran a regression. An equation of the slope equals to y, with the y-intercept being 1.225, plus the slope, 0.279x. The t-value is 3.840, with, again, degrees of freedom of 98. The p-value for the regression was again significant, being lower than 0.05. Testing the fit of the model showed that class participation could be predicted by extraversion around 13% of the cases.
This is stimulating my neurons, my wise. I think you found something very significant.
Thank you. Thank you.
Although the wise Plato and Aristotle certainly made a significant discovery here, they did not take the limitations of their research into account. First of all the students that participated in the research were all students that have been pre-selected on academic performance, and therefore the results are not necessarily representative of the overall population. And another thing is that they assessed extroversion and class participation with only one questionnaire for each trait, and for example, observational research on real-life class participation could have increased the internal validity. Despite this, the research still applies to the real world and still has external validity. As Susan Cain says in her book Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking, said, today's society favors extroversion. This has several implications, including for education, and in a setting like our college, where students are graded on their active class participation, like even in classes like ours, where we're just studying SPSS, and as Plato and Aristotle said, the SPSS God shows no preference towards extroversion or introverted student, we're still graded on this.
Yep.
Wenn ich sie rappen, jetzt muss man auf wie. Jetzt ja. Ja, wir haben es very young, it's very